Legacy Live. So Legacy Live is a platform about Black storytelling from everyday Greater Clevelanders. As I shared, I think that the work that you do and the way that you infuse culture into your work is not only unique, but it's needed. I think that we know that there's a stigma. I'm tired of saying this, but I think there is a stigma in the Black community. I think that the more that we talk about it, the more we lessen that stigma. But I first want you to just introduce yourself to our storytelling champions out here and tell them more about the work that you do and how you came on this journey.
Thank you for the introduction, and hello everybody, how y'all doing? It's a blessing to see everybody here, and it's just, this is amazing to be here in nature and to be able to talk about mental health outdoors. So I'm excited to be here. Hopefully I don't get attacked by the bugs up here, so if you see me swinging, I'm not waving. And,
we're gonna go together.
Yeah, this is just, this is beautiful, and I'm just loving the environment. So as Leah introduced me, I'm a mental health therapist, trauma-informed care counselor. I work with everybody on the scope from my youngest client being 10 years old till my oldest client being 70 years of age. So when you mentioned the caregiving as the second runner-up, that hit me because it is difficult, you know, and this client in particular is 70 years of age, and she lives next door to her aunt. And that just popped up in my mind. So just helping her navigate and helping her understand that she has to put herself first before she's pouring into her aunt, especially at that age, is difficult. I'm in the community, ghetto therapy. If anybody is familiar with ghetto therapy, I facilitate men's night. Some Wednesdays I do Peel Them Layers Back, the coke dealer program. So that's discussing mental health through the music lens. Currently, we're at Indian River Jail. So when we talk about reaching our young Black men that are incarcerated, it is important that we have to be creative in order to reach them and, you know, bring the energy, because nobody, especially somebody in an incarcerated facility, wants to just sit across from you and you ask them, you know, how are they doing, or what's going on, how are they feeling. So making mental health creative is the best approach that I've been involved in, especially with music. Everybody loves music, so to be able to change just their language, you know, saying negative words, how they approach women, we talk about all that. We talk about why they are incarcerated, you know, what led them there, their decisions that they're making. And then versus them saying, you know, they want to spin the block, or they want to go kill somebody, or they want to get revenge for somebody who killed one of their friends. I'm digging deeper of why do you feel this way? You know, what's the root cause? What's the first emotion there? So we're talking about hurt. We're talking about pain, and they're able to change their language and tell their stories in their music through mental health. So it's powerful.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I'm really interested in, because I'm always struggling with this aspect of like being my full self and bringing myself into my work. I don't know another way to do it. I've been told to separate the two. I'm still working on that. So how does your identity as a Black man show up in the services that you provide and with your clientele?
That's a great question. I feel like as a Black male therapist, just my undergrad and graduate studies, I mean, there were times where I was the only Black person in the class. And even getting trained in EMDR, which I'll go into later, but getting trained in that trauma-informed modality that's so significant in healing, like there's not many Black therapists who are trained in EMDR. So, you know, I used to feel left out. You know, I used to feel isolated, like, you know, where my people at? Until senior year, taking the last class that I had to repeat over, psychopharmacology. And a lady came in who owned a private practice, and she told me, "You're a unicorn. You know, you should look at this in a positive way." And that's when I really start to realize that, you know, what I'm doing is more positive than I even thought. So it's so important with no Black male therapist, no positive mentors in the community. So my role in that transformation has definitely increased over the years.
That's so interesting, especially when you talk about the relationships that you're building on the inside, right? And preparing them for a different pathway when they come home. And then also pairing that with being a unicorn, right? So, like, without disclosing too much, could you tell us what are some trends that you see in the conversations and the services that you're providing amongst Black men specifically? What should we know as capital C community that we could be helping with, intervening, advocating for, based on the data that you're collecting?
I think it is important, especially working with youth. Not a lot of people listen to them. Not a lot of people ask, what's going on in your life, and try to understand them, and they get judged a lot. So being in the schools, being in the jails has really helped me understand what's going on. And I'm sure it's not surprising, but it's still that stigma of, especially from Black families, of what goes on in this house stays in this house. Yes. Talking about your emotions is weak, crying is weak. It's still the same thing that I see across all communities and everything that I'm a part of. And so just helping them realize that it is okay to talk about what's going on, and changing that stigma is very important. So that's what's going on a lot in the jail. You'll be surprised too. Finishing up hip hop therapy at Glenville High School, they discussed. Shout out
to a lot of Glenville residents here. They all sitting together too, like a little gang back there.
Okay.
Glenville gang.
Yeah, I see y'all. So yeah, we just Mordecai's my line brother, so he knows we just finished a program at Glenville High School, and that was amazing. We all know Glenville is known for sports, so for them they made NBC News. So for them to be broadcasted through a mental health lens, making music was huge. But it surprised me and it touched me that during sessions they talked about not looking forward to holidays, with the family, and that hit home for me. I remember family drama during holidays, my uncles, intoxicated, and cousins intoxicated, and just drama. So it's still going on. So things around the holidays, things around Christmas, where they don't want to be with their families, they'd rather be doing something else, or in school where they feel safe.
Could you talk about a breakthrough moment or conversations in general that you feel like you've actually, what is a pinnacle moment for you where I went home, I'm riding home, and I know I reached this brother, I know I got through? Do you have a moment like that?
I definitely have a couple. One in particular, yesterday, I went to the jail out in Indian River, and it was my last session for this cohort of students doing a mental health therapy, and we just reviewing what has went on during the couple of sessions. I've been there 6 times, and then somebody else comes in and actually records them. So just reviewing things that we've discussed, what they've gotten out of the program, and it surprised me that one of the coping mechanisms, EMDR, bilateral stimulation, tapping.
Could you break down EMDR for us? Because you said I'm gonna do it, and then
it's
I'm still
now.
lost.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it is a trauma-informed care modality. Not a lot of people know about it. So that's what I love bringing to the communities, is discussing it. But basically what it is doing is it's reprocessing your left and right hemispheres of the brain. And it's a bottom-up approach where you're able to go back to the earliest part of your brain, which is the brainstem. The brainstem is developed while we're in the womb of our mothers. So it's like a time machine where we're able to go back in time and dig up memories that the unconscious mind
let's slow
has
down.
stored.
Because I was looking around for help. They couldn't help me on his side. Okay. So this is phased out across how many sessions? How long does it take to actually go through a whole phase of EMDR? Because you're talking about going back to your earliest memory, things that some would like to black out, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. when we talk about traditional talk therapy, I mean, that could be for years depending on the
Wow.
trauma.
Okay.
But EMDR and research has said that it's supposed to cut that time in half.
Wow.
So if you got somebody coming to sessions for 8 to 12 sessions, EMDR is supposed to cut that in half.
Wow.
During my training, that's another thing. Like I love to connect with people just through my experiences. I feel like God has put me in this position as a therapist for so many reasons, and just to have a young black man or a young black woman sitting across from me with something that I have actually experienced and I'm able to give insight and interventions is powerful for me. So even during my training, this was only like a 3-day weekend of EMDR for me training, 2 weekends. And that first session, I used the absence of my dad. And as a successful black man, I never would have known all that trauma from childhood was still in my body. So there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, which explains how the trauma is stored in the body. So like I'm crying my eyes out because my unconscious mind has been tapped in. And so all the stuff that I suppressed, all the stuff that I didn't know how to process as a child, is coming up.
Okay, so I want to go there. Are you ready? Are you willing to go there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm looking. Okay, we can go there. Okay, so for some, because you're a believer, how do you pair that technical expertise and trained expertise with your faith? And how do you hold people's hand tightly and say, we can do this together? Because I think one of the things along with what happens in this house stays in this house is go pray about it. It's like this dismissive, like go pray about it, go pray on it, push through, pray until something happens, which is very true. But it only takes us to a certain point until we tap into a place that needs, for lack of a technical phrase, a release.
Correct. I have a hoodie that says Jesus in therapy.
All right.
So those two go hand in hand, especially when you're trying to heal. We're always healing from something. Doing the assessments, like, every time a new client comes in for intake, we do an assessment, and I love that it has the questions on there. The spirituality or religion play a big part of your life. And that opens up the questions there. And then, I'm able to talk about myself and say, this is my story. This is a dark time that I had, but God has always been with me, and faith has been my what I'm trying to reach. And I believe, again, just me being myself and being able to share my experiences they relate to. And I love telling clients too, sometimes like you got to be careful, depending on who's sitting across from you, because talking about religion or talking about faith too much can be a turn off for somebody. And you just want to make them feel comfortable. So I think sharing my experiences and asking people, and the beautiful thing is I have a lot of black clients who are in the Bible app, who do go to church. So reading scriptures in sessions or just talking about faith. And I always tell them that the people that I see struggle the most are the non-believers, because if you are holding everything and trying to handle everything on your own, like that's impossible. Like you got to give that away. You talk about that release, like you have to trust in something higher than yourself to not carry that weight. You're not supposed to, and you're not supposed to struggle alone.
Whew. Okay. I think they want you to go in a different direction, Mr. Cash, but we gonna wind it down. So one of the things that you spoke about that really hit me is the young men at Glenville, but I'm sure at many other schools, who I'm thinking holiday break is a reprieve, or summer break is something that they're looking forward to. And then you give us that cold splash of water that says not for every home, right? And not for every family. And those generational issues that are showing up for these young men that they're witnessing, some that you've shared. I have similar stories. How do we look at the generations before us and the generations that we're raising that will come after us? this whole thing about generational trauma. Everything on Instagram is about breaking chains and breaking in generational trauma. And is it just hype, or do you feel like there's actual work that can be done to stop certain habits or viewpoints across generations?
I mean, when you think about where it starts in the home. So change is difficult for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Change is difficult for a lot of people in older generations. Mm-hmm. So we talk about grandparents, we talk about parents like my mother's age who she just turned 70. So, you know, they have that mindset of, I've made it this far, I've lived this far through my experience.
If it's not broke, don't fix
it. You can't tell me nothing.
Yes.
So it starts with that. And I think it's so like my family thinks I'm the family therapist now.
Mm-hmm. I would.
And like I'm saying this in a funny way, but I'm still traumatized by how strict they were. Mm. You know what I mean? So like I put on my therapist ears and I'm listening, and they like, you know, you can say something, and I'm like, I'm just so used to suppressing, you know, my opinion, and to be able to speak up again is a blessing, and be able to see their transformation is a blessing. So if you want change, you got to be willing to change.
I find that to be so fascinating because there are certain things my person is my grandfather. He's a babysitter tonight, so he's not here. But he's 84. And there's certain things that I still will not say or do around my grandfather. But I see my children, his great-grandchildren, they free as a bird. They just, they say anything, they do anything, they ask him questions. And you know what's so interesting? He responds. Isn't that interesting? I was like, I didn't know we could do that. I didn't know that was an option on the customer service line, that you could talk back and get a response. So to your point, they don't know anything different. And so sometimes it takes little people who are the change, and without even knowing it, to force some of our elders to have a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So the last question that I have, because I'm so intrigued by this hip hop therapy, is about consumption. Instagram, social media in general, music, we have playlists and all these different platforms that we can consume ourselves with. I have a very unhealthy attachment to podcasts. Like, if the podcast app goes down, y'all call me, check on me. How does what we consume affect our habits, our mental wellness, our emotional wellness? And do you have any perspective or advice on what we should do as individuals and as a collective in terms of monitoring or pivoting?
I think the eyes is the way to the heart. So there's a scripture, I know my wife would know it, but I forget it at the moment, but everything needs to be in moderation. And of course, social media nowadays is just wide open to anything. It starts with the parents, monitoring, knowing what your kids watch. And as I say this, I'm just thinking about clients and experiences that I've witnessed of parents, especially single black mothers. You know, they don't have the capacity to always watch and monitor what their children are doing, and sometimes they're not even present just because of the stress and the depression that's going on in their own lives. So it's again, making sure that the parents are helping themselves first so they can pour into their children, and then again teaching our children that it's okay to be corrected by other people in the community. That's something that we've got away from. You know, we talk about this all the time, just in sessions of back in the day. You know, grandparents, parents on the street could tell your children anything, or punish them, or give them whoopings, and come back and tell you, like, this is what happened and such, and everything was cool. But now you can't say anything. You can't say anything to the children. You can't say anything to the parents, because they looking at you like, you don't know my children, you don't know what I'm going through, and there's no community, there's no unity. So like, we definitely have to get back to holding each other accountable and being a family.
But what about us big folks? That's what we can do for our young people. But what should we be doing as adults who are stressed, who, I'm starting to hate the calendar app because we overschedule ourselves down to the minute for some things. Um, do you have any tips before you go about anything that we can do, small things, small adjustments we can make to slow down and actually be more mindful?
Absolutely. So 2 things: get a therapist. Um,
I know that's right.
That's somebody that dedicates time to you for a living, and there's no judgment. And it's somebody that doesn't even know what you went through or what you experienced, but they understand how the mind and body works. And that goes a long way, especially when you find a therapist that looks like you. So go to therapy, make that change, and your family make that change in your community of breaking that stigma that therapy is okay. And you don't have to go to therapy the last minute when something is wrong or when there's a crisis. We need to make therapy just like you going to the physician, getting checkups, checking in. So I think adults should set that standard, and I am seeing that a little bit more. They display therapy in movies, things on Netflix. So I think people are coming around to it more, especially when we have young people wanting to bring their parents into sessions and talk about things. So that's one thing, set the standard. And then the second thing is I'll talk about a grounding technique since I brought up EMDR. And this was something that the young black man in the jail said that, it stuck with them, and they do it every night. So when one of the youth said, I do the tapping every night and it helps me go to sleep, and he was excited. He's like, I do this every day, and he's showing me what he does. So it's called the butterfly hug, and basically you are tapping, like you do the butterfly hug, and you're tapping back and forth, just nice and slow. And this is the same thing as that infant rocking back and forth in the crib to help you desensitize and also give you that self-love and that self-soothing effect that you may not have ever got. So also, I have adult clients. I have a school therapist in particular that I'm thinking of who was at capacity, and she couldn't listen and take on things that her clients were coming into her office telling her about. So she actually will alternate her hands underneath her desk discreetly. So you can do this in your pocket as well. And what this is doing is alternating the left or right side of your brain and helping it desensitize. So you see people when they're facilitating, if I was standing up and talking, I would be walking back and forth to help me feel balanced. That's the same thing as doing the transitions. So that, and then also again, which works across all generations. If you're laying in bed, that's where most of the time we have anxiety and worry, and you can't sleep because you just processing everything that's done happened throughout the day or the week. Same thing as finding 2 spots on the ceiling width apart and just moving your eyes back and forth and processing things. And that's just the same thing as you being rocked in the crib or being cradled back and forth. It's going to help you desensitize. It's going to help you fall asleep. It's going to help you feel relaxed and relieved.
Well, thank you. Can we give Mr. Cash a round of applause?
Thank you.
I'm so happy you were here. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you accepted the invitation to come.
Absolutely.
And I'm so happy that we have documented this.
Yes.
Because I'm going to rewatch it to get the tips again. So I need a person.
You got my email, and
yes. Please share how people can stay in touch or anything that you're doing in community that's coming up.
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Express Not Suppress _ on Instagram, Facebook, my name. I'm on LinkedIn. I am. I know I got some other platforms that I'm forgetting. But yeah, if you just Google me, I should pop up.
I like that.
Things that I have coming up. I have a neurodivergent support group coming up.
Wow.
So actually, we just did an informational a couple of weeks ago on the 18th, and it went pretty good. So my focus there is bridging the gap with individuals who have autism. That's something that I specialize in as well. Autism, ADHD, dyslexia, things like that. and building support groups in the inner city. So
right.
building